Testing, test.
We're just trying to make a little space. I think it's good.
Okay, here's Brent.
Hey, Golder, are you still waiting on people to sign up? How many more do we want?
Hey man, you're doing the motion. We support you. You gotta get us a sense.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, want to see people. I guess we can roll right after we take a nice picture.
Take a picture, then we'll lower it.
No, you're good. I'm just good. So
Yeah.
junior.
That was good. We just want to make sure we can see people too when they come out. Alright, we can put that down.
Right.
It's not like that.
I found last time I created them. I happened to be right above my. I just happened to look down. I don't even found that. There was a teacher who I called for like bumping or and you're like, oh yeah, maybe it'll try to
Right there.
like is anyone down here need an extra big time? They need to be behind.
You got some time here?
I'm sure someone could.
That works too.
I don't have any kids that are like me, so I can just couple in my home. No buses, no students. Say that. That time of the
Oh, I see.
I've always experienced like trying to get your grades together from like while they're like working and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, y'all stressing me out. Yeah.
Of like full speeches.
Yeah, maybe.
What did he say? Oh, nothing.
He probably knows. He knows. That's hilarious. He came into my room too. I feel like it was not a secret. I tried. Open-ended questions.
Hello, hello.
Testing. Have you been at Riverside?
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Hello. Is that where you're from? Testing. My friend. Yeah. So my friend Jen also works at Riverside. He's from upstate. So I always forget. He like grew up on a farm, and he's like the first person. Yeah, he's the first person who I met from upstate New York, and like every time people
It's
say
fine.
it, I still do picture it. Like,
I need like that thing around your neck. That would be terrible for me.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Durham County is like Apple. I feel like I'm associating it with an Apple. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know all the town. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. Well, they'll get out of the way.
Yes, I know.
yeah. Cool. And then my
Oh yeah, we're gone. Yeah. Don't worry. I know you don't want to see my backside.
like I remember like being at the class and I'm like, yeah. Right. Where are you supposed to be? Back or
Do you teach it?
When union rights are under attack, what do we do?
stand up, fight back.
When union rights are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When bus drivers are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When bus drivers are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When monitors are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When monitors are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Good evening. My name is Micah Tweetmeyer, Riverside science teacher for the past 16 years, and now president of DAE, our proud public school staff union. We're here today after a long, unprecedented year of crisis in DPS. The classified pay debacle, admin erasing workers' years of experience via email, pay cuts, incorrect paychecks, HR dysfunction, an unreasonable new menu for our under-resourced cafeteria staff, social workers without master's pay, and now, of course, the transportation crisis that is leaving hundreds of our students stranded every day. These overlapping crises all stem from a lack of accountability for management and a lack of respect for workers and our expertise. They reflect a status quo where unaccountable administrators impose ineffective mandates without real input from workers who understand what our students and schools actually need in order to thrive. We are here today because without real changes to the way this district is run ASAP, the wheels are falling off. and it's our students who will suffer the most. Shamefully, though, we are still waiting to sit down with the district as a union to collaborate with administration and to help solve all these problems. It has been 11 months, and we are still waiting, and meet and confer isn't even on the agenda for tonight. We've presented our case over and over, and now we've had 4 meetings with Dr. Lewis and his cabinet where we compromised on everything we could possibly compromise on. But we cannot and we will not compromise on union rights or the basic definition of meet and confer. Our union leaders and Dr. Lewis agreed to every single section of the policy except for one, the section about who will attend the meet and confer sessions to represent the employers. The board now has to decide between 2 versions of the meet and confer policy, one from our majority union and one from the bosses. Which one do you think would bring more worker voice and accountability to administration? Ours is a real meet and confer policy that follows the norms of meet and confer policies everywhere else they exist. It creates a process for collective worker voice by allowing democratic employee organizations like our union to send a representative team of elected workers to meet and problem solve with members of district administration a few times a year. That's all it is. This is how all unions operate. To be against this is to be against the idea of unions themselves and all the great accomplishments of the labor movement. This is the bare minimum when it comes to respecting workers' rights, and it should not be controversial. Nearly every single school district in this country uses a process like this to hear from their workers collectively. The vast majority of districts, including Dr. Lewis's former district in Lawrence, Kansas, are required to collectively bargain entire contracts with unions as large as DAE. While public sector collective bargaining is still banned in North Carolina thanks to a racist and unjust law, unions and meet and confer policies like ours are perfectly legal. Our policy is free, it is democratic, and most of all, it would help us finally start to change DPS's disrespectful and dysfunctional status quo so that we can work on improving staff retention, rebuilding trust, and making this a better district for our students. Meanwhile, Dr. Lewis's version of the policy isn't meet and confer at all. It runs counter to the way employees and unions relate to one another all over the country. It is union busting, plain and simple, whether he intends it or not. And we aren't the only ones saying that. We have a solidarity letter that was sent to the board and Dr. Lewis today, which lays this out and was signed by over 40 labor union leaders from around the country, calling out this policy as union busting. It was signed by presidents and officers from educator unions like the Chicago Teachers Union and the Lawrence Education Association, electrical workers unions, service worker unions, campus worker unions, and more. The union busting is not up for debate. Admin's version of the policy would allow the superintendent to handpick individual, non-administrative, non-union employees to represent the district instead of guaranteeing that management be present to hear our union as our employers. To be clear, nowhere in the country do individual, non-administrative employees represent the employer in meet and confer or collective bargaining. Not only would this pit workers against each other and prevent basic accountability for management, it would encourage favoritism and undermine worker democracy. These individual employees would have no accountability to their coworkers, and they would have no process or evidence to suggest their views align with any of their coworkers, which means they couldn't represent their coworkers in any real way. The superintendent already has unlimited ways to hear input from these individual workers. Roundtables, listening sessions, stack. This has been the status quo of DPS for years. He does not need meet and confer for that. Our version of meet and confer would not take away a voice from individual workers or interfere with the superintendent's ability to consult with individuals. There is not a single genuine reason why Dr. Lewis cannot collaborate with unionized workers through meet and confer and his favorite individual employees through these other channels. So the board must decide, is Durham Public Schools pro-union or anti-union? This is what it all boils down to. Does DPS respect basic workers' union rights? Yes or no? And it is not up to the superintendent or his cabinet. It is up to you, the elected leaders of the district. It is time for you to demonstrate your progressive Durham values and prove that you aren't union busters by passing a real meet and confer policy. It is time to start collaborating with workers to start making DPS a better place to work and learn. Before we go inside this board meeting, we have a few more speakers who are going to speak more about the urgent issues on the ground and what we need to do about them. First, we'll hear from Retha Daniel Ruth, a veteran DPS bus driver, on the organizing they have been doing to try to fix the transportation crisis. Then Sonia Lopez, a DPS social worker, on how DPS has disrespected our social workers this year. And then finally, Tashira Smith, a DPS parent, on how the transportation crisis is impacting families like hers. Thank you.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
When public schools are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
When public schools are under attack, what do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do?
Stand up, fight back.
If we don't get it,
Shut it down.
if we don't get it,
Shut it down.
if we don't get it,
Shut it down.
My name is Retha Daniel Ruth. I'm a veteran driver with Durham Public Schools, and I'm a proud union member. I have been driving for over 30 years, and I've worked at DPS for 38 years. I am here today to speak to the transportation crisis. The solutions that me and my coworkers are putting forward, and to unite with public school workers across the district in our shared demand for a real meet and confer policy that would allow workers and management to come together to solve problems in a positive way. Everyone in town knows that our kids aren't getting rides to school every day, which is disgraceful. But let me tell you a little bit about the situation behind the scenes for drivers and monitors. This problem has been compounding over the last several years and now has reached a point of crisis. The rotation plan is not what was promised. We were told we would be taking 1 day a week to transport kids who hadn't otherwise been getting transportation. Instead, we are being used as subs to cover any route that is convenient for management to have us cover, including routes that they can and should be driving themselves. At least 10 supervisors who were driving are not driving anymore. They expect us to pick up all the slack, and they are setting us up to let down more kids. Because of this, not only are kids without transportation rarely getting it, but our routes no longer have a driver 1 day out of the week. Additionally, it is not uncommon that on rotational days, drivers and monitors are sitting in their cars, sometimes for hours, waiting to hear from management on a route assignment, and sometimes never receiving one. Yes. Our routes are long and sometimes nonsensical, and on some buses, kids are crammed 4 to a seat, acting up because they have no personal space. These top-down solutions are not working. This is a crisis of accountability and respect, particularly around worker voice and pay. Our compensation doesn't reflect our value, and management doesn't value our expertise as the people on the ground who are making this whole system work. I'm devastated and angry because I care about my kids. I know all kids from all walks of life deserve the best. They need stability and routine. I break my back every morning to make sure I get them to school on time and safely. And it's heartbreaking to know how many kids aren't getting to school every day. A lot of my students want to become bus drivers, and I am happy to have inspired them. But I hold back when my heart wants to tell them, don't work for DPS. I love my job. That's the reason I put up with the disrespect, and at one time 11 years with no raise, including a cost of living raise. I'm here speaking up because I want this job to be a good job for those coming behind me, including some of the kids that I drive right now. If I can get it to be a good job for me again, that would be a definite plus. The number one solution is worker voice, because we as workers have solutions. Workers do not have a seat at the table right now. We only have the ear of management if they feel like listening. We need a formal policy with representation from every department, where we as workers sit across the table with those who have the power to implement solutions. And we have solutions to the immediate crisis. Me and several other union members collected 147 signatures over the last week. And we are here tonight to deliver this petition to the decision makers to begin to address the crisis in transportation. We put forward these 5 emergency demands. 1, keep supervisors driving while we are in crisis. 2, fix route efficiency. 3, include transportation staff in bonus pay opportunities. 4, provide a clear and transparent system of rotation for extra duties so that it doesn't appear to be favoritism. And 5, give transportation workers access to schools. Some of us are standing outside hoping we can get to the bathroom in time, but we can't because no one will open the door for us. And again, we are calling on the district to respect our union and pass our union's version of a meet and confer policy. We know that the district administration is proposing a version of meet and confer that would allow the bosses to bring our co-workers to the table as part of the management team. This is divisive and confusing. My co-workers are in the same pot of soup that I am. We've already talked to our transportation co-workers about our issues. Now we need to meet and confer with the people over us who can make the changes. Let's not pretend that bosses and workers have the same amount of power. That is untrue, and it's gaslighting. We as workers need to come into meet and confer as a unified team, so we cannot have workers handpicked by the bosses at the table. We are here to say to the Board of Education, if you side with management and refuse to listen to thousands of organized workers, what message will you be sending to your employees, to parents, to the community who elected you? What choice will be left for workers who still want to make DPS a better place to work and learn. I think, hold on, I'm coming. Yeah, yep, there it is. Thank you. All right. They'll either have to give up and quit or create disruption and protest. So we are standing here today to call on the Board of Education to do the right thing, to listen to their employees, and to immediately address our emergency demands, and to confer with us on real long-term solutions. And as a union member, I call on the Board of Education and district leadership to stop trying to divide workers. Prove to us that you are not anti-union, and to pass the union's proposed meet and confer policy, not the district's version of meet and confer. What we are facing in transportation is just a symptom of a district-wide problem, lack of real worker voice and management accountability. Remember, things aren't getting any better. If we don't do something now, who knows what's coming?
That's right.
Hello, my name is Sonia Lopez. I'm a school social worker here in DPS, and I'm here because I believe that I'll wait for that. Hold on a second. All right. I believe in our power as workers to make this district better for all of us, student, families, and staff alike. Right now, the Board of Ed has a choice to make. They can keep ignoring workers, breaking trust, and dragging their feet with stall tactics and performative policy proposals, or they can finally listen to the people who show up every day to keep our schools running. Transportation workers have been organizing for months. They've brought forward real solutions to make buses run on time, to keep drivers from leaving, and to fix the chaos that hurts families. But instead of working with drivers, DPS keeps implementing top-down plans that don't work and won't last. And then there's master's pay. Last spring, the district promised to reinstate master's pay for all of us who lost it in 2013, classroom teachers, instructional support, and social workers. This fall, DPS broke that promise and now has another crisis of its own making. Over 30% of DPS social workers are at risk of quitting mid-year, not because we don't care, but because DPS failures have left us undervalued, disrespected, and unable to take care of our own families on these wages. Social workers hold our students through grief, through trauma, through crisis after crisis, but who's holding us? Certainly not this district. Instead of taking responsibility in addressing this issue, DPS has used stall tactics, refusing to provide the most basic data needed to fix the problem and instead choosing to present misleading information. Even worse, they've used divisive rhetoric that pits workers against each other. They suggested that upholding their commitment would take away other employees' pay. We're asking for what was promised to us, not for others to lose. It's not either or. We won't fall for that. By not addressing the crisis they've created, DPS is putting our most vulnerable students at risk while making it harder for us to do the work we're so committed to. We've been patient, we've worked under difficult conditions, and it's time for Dr. Lewis and the board to uphold their promise, not attempt to turn workers against each other. This is what happens when decisions are made without workers at the table. This is why we're fighting for a real meet and confer policy, one that gives us a seat where we belong. But let's be clear, not all meet and confer policies are created equal. Dr. Lewis's proposal is not meet and confer at all. It shuts out union leaders, undermines worker power, and leaves management unaccountable. DPS administrators get to keep making decisions behind closed doors. They get to decide who's valued and who isn't. They get to create crises like the one we're seeing now, with social workers at risk of leaving and buses still not running and students left to pay the price. It doesn't have to be this way. Our version, the union's version of meet and confer, is the only one that brings workers as a union face to face with administrators in power and enables them to collaborate and solve problems together. Together, we can hold DPS accountable, fix the broken systems that fail our students, drive our coworkers out, and undermine the services that families rely on. To the board members, you say you care about equity. You say you value your workers. Prove it. Stop union busting. Pass our transportation demands. Make good on your promise to social workers and instructional support staff. Pass our meet and confer policy, not Dr. Lewis's watered down version. To my fellow workers, let's keep showing up, keep telling the truth, keep standing together. We know what we're worth, we know what's right, and we know that when we fight together, we win together. Thank you. Everyone. I'm Tashira Smith, and I'm a DPS parent of 2 children at Forest View Elementary, and a proud USSW worker leader. I'm here as a concerned parent, standing in solidarity with DAE transportation workers, fighting for their voice to be heard and their demands to be met. In the beginning of the year, we had an amazing bus driver who really cared. She arrived at 6:15 and left at 6:30 so that she can come back to do a double route. As weeks went on, her presence got shorter and shorter every week. She eventually stopped coming altogether, and I can't blame her. Then we got an email saying that the buses would be on a rotational schedule starting in December, and now we get an email telling us that the schedule will be extended even longer. Solutions from DPS leadership have been insufficient to workers and disrespectful for workers, is causing iniquities for parents. I'm a single mother, a service worker, and I don't have a car. So on Fridays, which is my rotational day, I can either pay $15 each way for a Lyft or Uber to get my kids to and from school, or I can choose to leave them at home with my mother, who has PTSD, to homeschool them. I have to go to work on some Fridays because I can't afford to spend money every week. I've already had to pay for Uber 3 days this month. That's cutting into Christmas gifts that I plan to get my kids. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think I have to make this sacrifice. I don't think it's fair that my kids are missing school, caused by my daughter to cry, because giving her busy work at home is not the same as seeing her friends and her teachers at school. I don't think it's fair that when I drop my kids off at the bus stop, on Tuesday, a little boy got off the bus crying because there was crammed 4 kids to a seat and there was no room for him. I don't think it's fair for transportation workers are underpaid, undervalued, and disrespected. I think if the bus driver that had left would have felt valued, heard, and appreciated, maybe she would still be here today. Staff retention is a solution, and to do that, we had to listen to what staff needs. I know that these workers aren't just here to get a paycheck. They are experts at their jobs that care deeply about their students and have solutions to problems we're facing. And management should listen to them. I want to lift up 2 of their demands that the district should take action on immediately to meet their basic needs as workers. Give transportation workers access to school bathrooms during their shift. It is absurd that these drivers have to hold their bladder for hours because they have access to bathrooms. They're asking for schools to offer bus drivers key fobs or principals to make a plan with staff in the hall closest to bathrooms, to buses, to transportation workers in the building for a bathroom break. Is that too much to ask for? No. They are also demanding to include transportation workers in bonus pay opportunities. At the last board meeting, DPS stated on their PowerPoint presentation that they were open to this as an option. Let's get it done. Cap their routes at 3 routes per worker. Offer each worker the opportunity to pick up additional routes with 1 hour bonus pay for each additional route to compensate for the stress of running multiple routes. You all, as leaders of DPS, have a choice to either continue with the broken status quo, and every year more and more families will leave DPS and send their kids to charter schools and private schools, or you can listen to the majority of the transportation workers. Take action on their petition demands and pass the DAE meet and confer policy now. Educators and transportation workers being at the table across from management discussing issues in DPS gives us parents a sense of relief. When we send our kids to school each day, we want to feel confident, knowing that the teachers and educators have everything they need to teach them. The bus drivers and monitors have everything they need to get them to school safely without any hurt, harm, or danger. And I can go to work with a sense of relief, knowing that my children are safe and getting the proper education they deserve. And so respect, pay, and rebuild the lost trust by passing DAE's meet and confer policy and taking action on transportation worker meeting demands now. I'd ask if people are going into the building for public comment, they could go in first right now. If you're giving public comment, you want to head up there now. Quickly, because we're getting close to public comment. I'd also like to thank everyone for being here in the cold weather. This is what we're talking about, standing together, and we will be available after this for comments.